Welcome back, everybody. I'm Christopher Brandon with the Coeur d'Alene Public Library and the Cooperative Information Network.
And I'm George Williams. I'm the Next Search Catalog Coordinator at Northeast Kansas Library System.
And today we're going to be talking a little bit about email and what that means for Koha and the kind of things that we've been facing recently with changes in email providers. So we're going to talk about that a little bit and share some things that we've been doing to work with that. But first, here is a word about our sponsor.
This video is sponsored by koha-US, your place to look for all things Koha. Whether you're just starting out with Koha, or you've been with Koha for a while, koha-US is a great place to find resources, learn new tips and techniques, or connect with other users and libraries. Koha-US provides excellent information, both original and curated from around the internet, including the terrific Every Other Day training videos. You will also find several special interest groups to connect with, as well as our general monthly meeting where we gather to talk about the latest Koha news. You should also check out the koha-US annual conference, held at various locations around the US. This is a great opportunity to meet with other users face-to-face, and build your Koha network, as well as new friendships. And of course, don't forget about the great presentations. Koha-US is also actively involved in the Koha community by contributing towards new developments. If you are interested in contributing towards Koha-US funded developments, join the Koha-US membership. Your annual membership builds the funds to sponsor new developments in the community, and as a member, you also help shape Koha-US with your membership votes, and receive a discount on the annual conference. You can also contribute towards developments through a direct donation, or by purchasing some great Koha-US merchandise through our Threadless account. Visit us at koha-us.org to find out more.
All right. So
I have a feeling that we are not going to solve anybody's problems today.
No, I don't think we're going to solve problems. I think we're going to provide some helpful tools, but also help people be aware of what's happening in the realm of email and what's, what we have to look forward to. But hopefully, we can make some progress down the road and help ourselves and help libraries deal with these situations as they progress.
What would be really awesome is if everybody had an email address that was easy to input into Koha, and everybody read their email every day, deleted their old messages, and had an empty email box that would receive any new emails being sent, and that nobody ever sent or received spam. If we could just have those things happen, everything would be fine. That would solve 90% of our email problems.
Absolutely.
Maybe even 99% of our email problems.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, that's not the real world.
No. In fact, we are facing. We've got two different issues here. We've got a situation where email providers are changing things because I don't know about you, but I've been noticing that spam has been ramping up. They've been getting past a lot of our city filters, the things that they normally watch for. And we have a lot more stuff leaking through that didn't in the past.
Right.
So we've got that issue, and providers are having to combat that in some way. But we also have an issue where we have emails being put into Koha in accounts that are not being verified. They're not being verified by any kind of automated process, and they're definitely not being verified by staff as well as they should be. And so that's leading into patrons not getting their emails.
Yeah, one of the things that our family comes up with often is my oldest daughter has a name that ends in the letter E, and her middle initial is also an E. And her email address is her first name, her middle initial, and her last name. And when people see that, they go, uh-oh, there's a typo here. She added an extra E in between her first name and her last name. And so then she gets all these complaints from people that she gives her email address to, that, I didn't get your email. And then they said, well, your email's all bounced. And then she looks at it and she said, that's not my email. You took the E out of the middle. And it's like, oh, we thought that was a typo.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems with Koha is a human involved interface. And so we have tons of email addresses that have typos in them, that have mistakes, because it's easy to make that kind of mistake.
Letters are reversed. Another
Yeah.
key was accidentally hit.
The library card number is actually accidentally scanned in the email field.
Yep.
And so I've seen the report you're going to show us. You've got examples of that.
Staff are not reading back those emails once they've entered them,
Yeah.
not verifying this information, which, when you're dealing with a lot of patrons on a daily basis, I get it, but we're trying to provide a service. And, I always feel like, how well can I trust an organization with my information and with the service that I'm getting if they're not, checking that
Right.
stuff, and doing any kind of quality control on it.
Right. And that's, when I worked at the Latah County Library in Idaho, I would stand at the circulation desk a lot, and the cards there would expire once a year, and the patron would come in, and I'd be up there with my coworkers, the people that I supervised, and they would scan the card, and they would say, oh, your card is expired. We just need to double check your information. And the patron would say, well, nothing's changed. And the staff member would just hit renew and move on. And then I would take them aside and I'd say, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to show them the screen and say, well, even though nothing's changed, I just want you to read this and double check it and make sure that it's all correct and that we didn't type things in wrong the first time. And invariably, when you actually did that with patrons, they would say nothing changed. And then you would turn the screen and show it to them, and they'd say, oh, well, actually, we updated our phone number. We've got a new phone number now. Oh, and that's not our email address. So, it's that human interaction is really hard to, it's just natural that people are going to make those kinds of mistakes.
Yeah.
And there's no way to stop that. At least I've never figured it out.
So, all right. So what we're running into right now, the reason that this is kind of on the forefront of my, I don't know, just
the reason you're thinking about it.
It's got my attention because I was, we deal with, we're trying to, we've revamped our email a little bit so that we could help patrons in some ways, help staff in some ways, and help the email flow in some ways. We've updated starting yesterday for us, beginning of February, we updated our branch outgoing email addresses so that they're all going out as one email address. So one central email address that patrons can watch for in case, ends up in the spam filter, rather than 28 different email addresses to have to watch for.
Right.
So we're trying to make that improvement for the patron's sake, also for the staff's sake, that they don't have to have a complicated thing to help explain or, why am I not getting notifications? Okay, what notice what library did this come from? Okay, do you have an email from such and such library? in your spam filter, right? So they only have one thing to look out for in that outgoing email.
Right.
And we have the reply to set to that individual branch. So if they reply to that email address, they'll converse with that specific library. So we've made those adjustments. But just prior to making this adjustment, I was double checking some things with our provider, Bywater, and especially because I have, we are verified, our server's outgoing email is verified through AWS, and we need to make sure that that email address that we're using was verified so that everything would work as it's supposed to. And I was getting a bounce message on one of our smaller libraries, and I was trying to double check, and I'm still in the process of checking as to what the issue is with that, because it's saying, that there was a policy issue because of that particular library's email address. And so I'm trying to get to the bottom of that. But when I brought that up, they came up with, Gmail and Yahoo, which this library is using Gmail. Gmail and Yahoo are about to make this change in February to, circumvent or to mitigate the spam issues that they're seeing. And so, they're making some changes to kind of help determine if these emails are authentic and necessary. So, what they shared with me was alarming. Is like, okay, I'm about to throw the switch on this and have all our email. If I kept it the way it was, it was, all these different branches hitting these various, Gmail and Yahoo servers. Now it's going to be through one email address. Is that going to cause a problem? So I ended up having to write a report to see how much on a daily basis on average we were dealing with, because it was, the number I was being told was, if you send more than 5,000 emails at one of these servers in a day, they're going to flag you. So since then, Bywater has come out with more information. They sent stuff to the partners with that information. So if you're a Bywater partner, you should have that email and an explanation. So I know that we're safe because of the conditions in which they're going to start flagging. We don't meet, and they said that most of the libraries don't meet, but there might be a few that could be affected. So you do need to check that email, and if you're not sure about that,
I have a report for that.
Go and check with Bywater.
Right.
To get that information, or look up the information about the Yahoo and Gmail provider changes that hit in February. They'll tell you the conditions under which these things are going to happen. But Bywater had to help explain some of this, because straightforward out of Gmail and Yahoo's explanation might be a little confusing.
Right.
So, but yeah, this led to us writing some reports to look for some stuff. And so we're going to start sharing a few of the reports that we're using to help look for some things and determine whether or not we have the chance of being affected, and what it led to in some other reporting that we've done to look at our email situation. So George, why don't you share your report and we'll go from there.
Yeah, when I read this, that was my first question is, well, how many emails do we send a day and where do they go to? So I've got a report here that's looking at the message queue. And the message queue isn't just the queue of messages that are about to be sent, it's also the messages that have been sent. And we keep our message queue, I think we have ours set to save data for the previous 6 months, 180 days. So I can get a count of things in the previous 180 days. And all this is doing is it's converting a timestamp into a date. And then it's getting everything that comes after the @ symbol in the receiving. When Koha sends a message, it records the email address that it's sending the message to in the message queue as the to address. So this is getting everything from the to address that comes after the @ symbol. And it's just counting.
That -1 means it's going from the end, not
Yeah.
the beginning.
Yeah, when you look at this, it's message queue to address, and it's getting the substring, everything. It's looking for the @ symbol, and then it's get every. If it said plus, if it was a 1, it would get everything on the left side, and a -1 gets everything on the right side of that. And then I've got a date range in here where it's getting the ranges. It's getting everything sent between a date range. And so if I run this, it's going to say messages sent between the beginning of the day on this date. So let's just do all of January. So we'll start on January 1st and we'll end on January 31st and run the report. And if I expand it to show a bunch of rows, and I've got it set to go backwards. So it's starting on the 31st and working back. And it's just going to give me how many messages were sent to AOL.com, 33. How many were sent to Gmail, 893 on that day. How many to Hotmail, 160, and so on and so on.
I see some weird domains in there.
Yeah, some of them are weird, like this one that says 92gmail.com. There's a pretty good chance that's a typo.
Yeah.
Because it could be that there is a 92gmail.com. I am almost 100% certain that Gmail is not going to let somebody get away with having a domain name of 92gmail.com. That's almost certainly a typo.
I see another one down in the Gmails there.
Yeah, there's one here that's Gmail, and then it's got part of a patron card number in there. And this one is going to Jimali.
There's a gmail.co.
Yeah. And so what I need to do is to use another report to go out there and try and find those so that I can track down who has the misspelled email addresses. But this
G.mail.com. Wow.
G.mail, yeah. That's one of the things that Koha doesn't do yet is it verify what the email verification when you're creating a patron is just verifying that the format of the text matches the rules for the format of an email address. So it's got something over here and then an @ symbol and then a domain name. It's something dot something else. And it's not verifying, the verification doesn't say, is this a working email address with an inbox that's accepting messages? It's just saying, is this formatted the way that email addresses are supposed to be formatted?
Mm-hmm.
Verification is a different issue, and you've started looking into that. So I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah.
But the one thing I would say about this report, and we'll make sure to have a link in here to where you can find it in the Koha wiki. The important thing about doing this is that I was able to determine that we are not sending anywhere near enough emails in a day to trigger these new anti-spam efforts on the part of like gmail.com and yahoo.com. We're not meeting that 5,000 a day threshold for either of those servers. We're not even doing 5,000 emails a day total. It's more like in the 2,500 range for us.
So yeah, I was looking at that report as well, and I'm using pretty much the same report to basically look for anomalies in those, but I'm looking more at the borrowers than the outgoing emails. I mean, the outgoing emails are said and done. The outgoing emails are good for me to get an idea of that counts on, how much is going to a particular server. So, yeah, that's important. That helped me in this particular issue that we're looking at right now with Gmail and Yahoo. I have a report here that actually works along the same lines, except it's just looking at Gmail and Yahoo, so I don't have to look through all the minor providers that are getting 1 or 2 or 10 hits on them. I'm looking at the ones, and I could increase this to like Hotmail or Outlook or some of the other major providers out there, but this one looks specifically at those, and so I could see,
Right.
Easily, what areas are of a concern, and so this report is simply whittling it down between Gmail and Yahoo in the where statement.
Right.
So, and then reporting back just as this is a Gmail domain or a Yahoo domain, so that I don't have to see the entire email address. So that gives me those counts. Going beyond that, I did want to look at the actual borrower accounts and see where some trouble spots are, obvious trouble spots are. And I have a report here that is looking at the domains of the primary email account. Right now, I'll expand this probably later on down the road to include the secondary email accounts, other email fields, but right now I'm looking at the one that we primarily send emails out to. And so this is again using that same substring index in order to look at just the domains and giving me counts of how many accounts are actually affected by this. And I'm excluding the accounts that don't have anything in there. Either it's a null field or it's blank.
Right.
It's been cleared out, and then grouping by that domain. So when I run this against our actual borrower accounts, this is what we're hitting. And see here, I've got, I can expand that a bit. So I am going through, just scanning through here and looking more for the, I'm not looking at these 1s and 2s so much, because if I see some things that are similar, then that is what is catching my eye, that I need to look at a little bit more. Or if I see a .ed or a .co, looking for obvious.
Yeah, there's one I just saw up a little ways. You've got
Typos.
AOL.com. And then right underneath it, you've got an obvious
Yep.
card number in there too.
Yeah. So, watching for things like that, if I were to go down to the Gmails,
Yeah.
you can see all the issues that need to be corrected in the patron accounts.
Gmail.com. I like that
Yep.
one.
Now, if I were to do a search for this specific domain, and I have our email addresses searchable, if I
Right.
go into Koha and search for that, I can find that patron. But like for this one, if I search for this, it's going to give me all of this as well, because it's not going to look for just that.
Right. It's doing a contained search, right?
Yeah.
Not a.
So I have another report that is going to look for specifically that equals that specific domain. So it's looking at the domain and finding that exact match. So when I run it, it asks for that. I can paste that in there. I'm not going to run it because it's going to show patron information.
Right.
But I can look specifically for that, and then I can track those specific patrons down and correct their addresses as needed. So those are some tools that I'm working on right now. What would be nice now, you know, going back to what started all this for me, was that bounced email address. And when I get bounced emails, I will, um, look at that email, and because we're going through AWS, we have a verified email address. We get those bounced reports telling me a little bit more detail about why that message bounced. And most of the time it does pretty good. You know, it'll say that the account doesn't exist or their mailbox is full. But sometimes they'll tell me it's blocked or suppressed, and it doesn't give me much more than that. And I found that sometimes those suppressions are because they've blocked us, we're marked as spam, or sometimes it's simply because it doesn't exist and the server's reporting it as a block instead. So I end up going to there's a few email verifiers out there that'll let you do, you know, so many verifications per day for free. I'll go out there and I'll put that email address in, and it'll report back on that email address it doesn't exist, or it's okay, or whatever. If it gives me back an okay, but a server's telling me that it's being blocked, then I will report back it's just being blocked. I act on these bounce messages. I want to report back to the patron and stop, you know, throwing emails at something that has a problem. And so I'll go into the patron account and I will, you know, say, I'll restrict their account with a message saying it's been blocked because your mailbox is full. It's been blocked because you're blocking us. It's been blocked because it doesn't exist. It's been blocked because you have reported us as spam. We're specifically getting an abuse report back from your email address. We're taking your email address out of there because, and we're not letting you use this because you are, you had reported us. So I am marking these accounts with those specific explanations so they understand what's going on. In cases where we've been reported as abuse or it doesn't exist, I'll actually take the email address out of their email field, but I'll always have that address in the restriction so that they can see what that is, what address had the problem, so they don't go and repeat it. Hopefully staff are looking at that and making sure they're not putting the same address back in there. And then I have another totally off topic, but I have, you know, we've had issues with specific providers that are saying that they are blocked. It's more of a local provider. They're saying that the emails are being blocked, but the patron's reporting that they're getting their emails. Well, we have to treat it as if it's being blocked. And we're getting all these false positives from a small group from this particular provider. And so what we've ended up doing is, and if you can refer back to our previous videos on patron validation, how we've done patron validation, I've enhanced that to look for these emails with these three specific domains, and I'm not letting staff save those email addresses anymore. So we're just preventing them from saving the account if they have those domains, and they have to explain to the patron, we're not allowing those particular email addresses. You can either use a different email, you can use SMS, or we've got the phone call option. So you have other options, but we can't use that address.
Interesting.
So that's we're doing that because otherwise, you know, they're saying, oh, we're getting the emails. They take the restriction off. We get more complaints. I put the restriction back on. We go back and forth on that, and we don't want to do that to the patron. So that's why we decided
Just block them. Yeah.
Yeah. Find a different route, because we're not gonna keep doing this cycle to you. We don't want to frustrate you. We don't want to frustrate the staff, and we want to resolve this. So we'll find another method that will work. So
Cool.
That's what we're doing. But in all of this, means that somebody has to go through and respond or react to those bounced messages. And here, that falls on me. And what would be ideal is if there was some way that Koha automated this. And I've put out a bug, and I'll include that in this video. But I put out a bug a while back asking, that we have some validation. We don't have any email validation except for if you are self-registered and your library has the option turned on to verify the email on that instance only.
Right.
If you enter a patron on the staff side, that doesn't happen.
Right.
And that's where the majority of problems happen. I have, in these sites that verify email, a lot of them are offering APIs to do verification, which is really nice. I've been digging a little bit. I'm still in the research phase, but I've opened up dialogue with our provider, Bywater. I'm going to dig a little bit further, but I'm also going to take this to the system administrators SIG later on this month and talk about this a little bit. But these APIs, I mean, they're great. There's one particular company that allows you to do 25 verifications through the API for free daily, which is really nice. It allows you to do some testing. I couldn't use it in production because we verify way too many email addresses in a day, but and they have some affordable price ranges for however many you think, however many patrons that you create in a day. You can kind of get it in the ballpark and pay for that. And I think it's really worth it because it eliminates me having to do that, eliminates the frustration and between patron and staff, and also helps to guarantee that the patron is going to get their notifications. And what it does is if you insert the code into the page, the form, the page that has that form, any email on this particular one, any field on that form that has an email address, it's going to, when you put something in there, it's going to verify whether or not that email address is valid or not. If there's any issue, it doesn't exist or it's full or whatever, it will come back with a reason why it's not verified, not valid, and stop you from being able to save that form. It basically blocks the form from being saved until a valid email address is in that field, one that can be emailed to. That would be extremely helpful. Staff don't have to click a button to verify. They don't have to wait for confirmation or anything. It checks right there on the spot when that address is entered, which is really what we need. We need to confirm that piece of information, above everything else right at that moment. And I would love for us to have, down the line for us to have something for text messages too, but that requires a different process because there is no mechanism to check if that is valid to my knowledge. But there are ways that can be handled. But for now, the email's the big thing that's hitting us. And I would love to be able to do that. I tried putting the widget in, but because it includes a script in there and a key, it's not ideal to put it in jQuery. And when I do put it in there just for testing on our test server, it breaks the jQuery. It doesn't like that script being added through jQuery. So unfortunately, I can't do it on my end. It has to be done through either Koha needs to provide some sort of mechanism so that you could put a validation information in there, or a plugin would be helpful in order to do that for whatever provider that you choose.
I'm thinking this would probably in Koha be a plugin because there's going to be enough difference probably between the API from different services that do this that you're probably not going to be able to find one service or you're not going to be able to produce one piece of code that's going to work with a bunch of different providers.
Yeah.
So my guess is it would be a plugin if we can get somebody to write it.
And that's the thing right now. You know, I've done some coding for Koha itself initially back when I was able to do DevBots. But things have changed since then. I have not been involved in programming as much as I'd like to, and I need a working environment to even create a plugin, and I don't have those skills at this time. So,
Right.
you know, I would love to down the line. It's just a matter of finding the time to do that on top of all of my regular duties. But
On top of checking all those bounce messages every day, right?
right. So, anyways, that's where we are. That's what we're dealing with. And I'm hoping that this email just helps bring people up to speed. You know, there's a lot changing in the realm of emails. And I know that providers are trying to do these things to help, you know, reduce the amount of spam that's hitting the end user.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to find ways to work with them and get our notices out to the patrons and make sure that we're in alignment with those changes, and that those changes don't break what we're doing along the way. So it's important for us to stay on top of these things, to make sure that we have good data, to make sure that that our systems are following whatever rules the providers are asking for. And sometimes that involves, you know, we need to coordinate with our system providers for Koha.
Right.
So that's where we are.
Like we both said, this is more questions than answers today. So
Yeah.
so maybe next time we could do something where we got more answers but no questions.
Hopefully this will be informative to our folks that are managing Koha systems, and they'll ask their providers or their system admins the right questions to make sure that things are up to snuff for these where these providers are currently, and it'll give you the right questions to ask, and it'll also give you some tools to go look through your data and, you know, see how things are and see where you can make some improvements.
You know, the perfect outcome from this is if people that are running spam farms would see this video and they would go, you know what? We're wasting our lives. We're just going to stop sending spam. That would be the perfect outcome, is if people that send spam would see this video and they would go, you know what? We're just not in a good business. Let's
Get a life.
Until that happens, we hope that this is helpful information, and we hope we can find ways to make Koha to send messages to people that will be received, and that we can improve this the way that our work goes, because spam has created a lot of problems for email systems in Koha.
A lot of unnecessary work.
Yeah.
So,
We'll see you all next time.
All right.